How is this now? Okay, fine, microphones are fine. And probably have to close the door because it's noisy outside. So I will talk about what we did during our European project. This is called NEMO BMI. But first of all, what is our neuromorphic approach? Even though it is still not implemented on neuromorphic device, we hope somebody of you will produce device soon to be able to implement this. But what we are doing, we are using spike timing neural networks to extract features from recordings of brain activity. And what is the basic idea? It is shown here. If we have a pool of neurons and we fit with some, this is 3D example, how we can distinguish three clusters in three-dimensional data with input generating currents. We want to cluster this data, exploring the firing rate activity of all pool of neurons, and you see the neurons could be connected randomly or not so randomly. I will explain further. So what happens if we run a neural network without STDP trained connections? We have this more or less random activity in the firing rates of this pool of neurons. This is artificial example, but after STDP training, you see how the network settles down to different clusters, and this is example how can we distinguish these are Andrews plots from PCA from the data before and after. This is on raw data. This is before static spiking neural network, and this is STDP trained neural network. So this is a proof of concept that we can use spiking neural networks to cluster data in some more natural way, not to use such kind of complicated mathematics, because our brain also uses this way of clustering of information, probably. And what is the basic idea? We started with a new cube of Professor Kasabov. I'm sorry, he was intended to present a lecture, but couldn't make it. We started with a toy example he provided us. There are EEG recordings from a skull. Here is the so-called new cube or 3D brain structure. The positions of all blue dots are positions of neurons in the brain taken from Talleyrand template. This cube is of about 1,000 neurons or less, and the red dots are positions of the electrodes. What we did, we fit EEG recordings. These are somehow processed EEG recordings through these positions to the 3D spiking neural network structure, having connectivity, small world connectivity, basically. So connectivity is established based on the distances between each two pair of neurons. Why? Because this is somehow we extract not only temporal information, but also spatial information. Closer neurons interact more, and those that are in separate by distance probably doesn't interfere with each other. Here are the firing rates in the cube example, and we fit these features to the classifier. This is echo-state network. I started working with this in German, actually. And this is good because it is fast trainable. First of all, it is dynamic pool of neurons, although very simple hyperbolic tangents, nonlinearities. But the trick is that even though this is randomly connected network, we have to train only output connections of the readout. And this is because this is linear superposition of these nonlinearities. Training can be done even in online mode using recursive least squares. So training of such a kind of model is quite simple. And we use the test example, as I already said. This is from this paper. We have to classify three clusters, whether the person moves, stays idle, or is or pulling something. So we use the data and compare our results with their results. You see, in this paper, they reported 86% of classification accuracy of these three classes. And besides this, recording is very short, 1 second, I think. And what we did with this classifier, we added ecostate network. If we use only ecostate network classifier, we have quite good results with this precision, with different size of reservoirs. However, if we put also spiking neural network to extract features, you see how the accuracy drops, significant drop of accuracy. You see here, this is 0.5. So this is a proof of concept that this feature extraction using spatiotemporal patterns of data extracted via spatiotemporal neural network of spiking neurons helps to increase significantly the classification accuracy. Yes?
Why are spiking neurons better?
Intuition is that after STDP training, you see the spiking activity depends on the inputs. Here we have a very, very simple example feeding only constant input currents. But these constant input currents are spread into 3 clusters. You see blue, red, and green dots. So intuition is that if we train via STDP the whole connectivity inside of this pool of spiking neural networks, even if they are randomly connected, you can distinguish classes by spiking activity. This is class 1, this is class 2, this is class 3. Of course, we have multiple features, so we are able to choose via PCA or some other feature extraction method to choose proper features from all these neurons in the pool and to easify our classification task, thus going to another space of features that probably separates data better than initial feature space.
Have you tried using other methods, convolutional networks?
Actually, we didn't try temporal convolutional networks because we need a lot of data to train convolutional neural networks. Here, in this toy example, as I say, very, very small number of data. We had 60 records for 3 classes, 20 examples per class, so it's very small. But why I'm showing this? Because we apply this in more realistic and complicated scenario in our work during the project. So this was only proof of concept that it works, and and that the spiking neural network helps a lot to improve the accuracy, because the further the task we have to solve is much more complicated than this one. Okay. So I'm going to the project. Yesterday, Professor Gabrovsky said something about this project. We are partners. The coordinator is Seya from France, Grenoble, and Professor Gabrovsky showed results from a group in Switzerland. They have implants in the spinal cord for paraplegic persons, but we are working with data from SIA with tetraplegic persons. That is another task. So for paraplegic persons, Switzerland team invented an implant that bypasses the broken part of spinal cord and sends signals directly to muscles in the legs. But if we have tetraplegic persons, what does it mean? They are paralyzed from here. So it's not possible to put implant here in this area of spinal cord because it's dangerous. They didn't invent how to do it yet. And the idea of SIA, they have exoskeleton, and they want to read the mind of paralyzed person to help him to move arms, probably legs. It's a hard task via exoskeleton. What is the invention here? This is V-Imagine implant. This is COG device, as Professor Gabrovsky. It's mounted on the surface of the brain. It doesn't go deeper, and it doesn't move with movements of patient. That's important. And it sends the readings of 64 electrodes wireless signal. They also say that they have something denoising engine inside the implant. This is patent, so we don't know exactly how it works, but our task was to try to train auto-adaptive neuromorphic decoder of these signals. The implant is on the motor cortex, and the person is, the data was collecting during the presentation on the screen to the person the task that he has to imagine. We don't have guarantee that these disabled people always think about what they are instructed to think. But anyway, we have marked data. And here I will present simple example what we did. First, we started with full brain structure. They give us tomography images of the brain, and this is connectivity. These are positions of two implants with electrodes. It's virtual, yes. We have. They are mounted on the surface. They cut part of bone here and mount here this plate with electrodes. So it's permanently positioned. Actually, they have even a robot in the surgery that places exactly where they need these electrodes, and it depends on the tomography images of patients. So it is very personalized, and they guarantee that electrodes are positioned properly. What happened? AE companion wants to help us.
Shall we do a good job today as well?
Okay, this is our first example. What we did, we trained this structure. We trained the STDB connectivity within this structure, feeding simply raw signal through these positions of electrodes. This is initial connectivity. This is trained connectivity. You see the connectivity is more dense here than on the far parts of the distant plate, but we discovered that we don't need so many neurons. Actually, the positions of electrode were quite enough to prepare our 3D structure. So one of the data we obtained, we didn't interfere with patients. The patient has ECOG implant. We record the data, and we have to train motor control decoder that has to predict whether the patient thinks that avatar should stay idle or should avatar is on the screen. The patient can't move. And besides, to improve the accuracy of this prediction, we have to be able to predict based on these brain signals whether the state there is satisfaction in signals, in the meaning that if the state desired by the avatar is achieved by the state predicted from motor control decoder, this is satisfaction. Otherwise, if it is not, unsatisfaction or satisfaction value is 0. And what we started with, we intended to implement reinforcement learning framework. It appears that it is hard to have a patient input, so we mimic somehow, but we trained motor control decoder and neural control decoder. Both structures have to predict based on the object state. This is ECOG features, ECOG signals from the brain, the action that patient wants to send to the avatar, and besides to predict whether this prediction is good or bad. And the aim is to maximize satisfaction. Both structures, motor control decoder and neural control decoder, consisted of, we first extract by 3D cube new features, spiking pictures, and then we fit them to two ecostate network, and one interferes to another. Georgi will tell us about pre-processing of raw signal, because it appears that even though it is filtered somehow, we need further to process it. Why? Because The intention is to have prediction every 100 milliseconds. Every 100 milliseconds, we receive 59 points from each electrode. So it is very, very small amount of data. One idea is to use window of 1 second, but it makes a lag in the predictions. And we decided to try whether 1 second or 100 milliseconds are enough to extract features from data and to predict at every on-time desired action. So to be able to use this device in real online. And this is the structure. Sorry?
Your goal is ultimately to classify whether the image is stationary or moving from the echoes.
No, not images. The patient sees on the screen an avatar, and there is instruction. Think that you want to move avatar, or think that you want to make avatar to stay idle. This is like to imagine that the person moves or stays idle. Of course, there are more complicated data: move left hand, move right hand, touch something on the board of lamps in 3D space. That is quite more complicated. So
Should have said the intention.
the intention, yes, the intention is two classes classification task. Very simple.
Question remains, from the echo signals, you want to classify the two different dimensions.
Yes.
Why do you stick them into the SNN cube first?
Because this is feature extraction. We process all 64 electrodes and we extract features that should be better than the raw signal.
And is that SNN cube trained somehow?
Yes, it constantly changes independent of incoming signal via STDP. All connections in the cube are spike timing dependent plasticity. Here is the connectivity of our 3D structure. You see position of two implants because there are two left and right. And these are connections, red are positive, blue are negative. You see this is after training probably, or before training, I'm not sure which. This is in 3D space. So you can see the connectivity is dense inside two parts of the implants. And also there are some mutual connections between them. This is a...
SNN has a tendency to explode. But you observe.
Actually, it doesn't explode. We observed.
Do you have any mechanism to compensate, like some kind of open spaces, or is it just standard BM?
No, we just test it. We see that after some initial training, because we start with very, very small weights, between -1, +1, I think, or something like this. Very fast, it settles to about ±40 or something like this. And even though it varies with the trails, it doesn't explode.
Like the waves cap or anything, it's very hard to believe. Like if you have an excitatory wave.
Actually, we wanted to see what happened. They didn't explode because the signal is variable. It's not constant.
But still, help me here. Have an excitatory wave, so you have to keep a pair of.
But we also have inhibitory weights.
Correlation is necessary causal. So a presynaptic spike is more likely to cause a postsynaptic spike than not. So the integral over the spike timing is skewed towards.
Yes, mathematically it is the case, but it also depends on the inputs to these neurons. Actually, it depends, believe me.
Because it's causal interaction.
It depends because we have variable input currents to all neurons. These variable input currents depend on the.
Excitatory connection is necessarily causal in terms of.
But we have also inhibitory. Part of connections, smaller part are inhibitory. That's why in each pool of neurons, if you don't have inhibitory neurons, connectivity will explode. But if you have balance, we observed, we tested, we recorded the weights, and it appears that they didn't explode.
You're saying because there's also an inhibitory path somehow.
Yes.
You can also have anti-causal correlation.
Yes. Actually, these are results with real data. I didn't show them on the presentation, but anyway, we were worried about this, and it appears that it doesn't explode. Initially, you started with pre-training and then fixing the weights, but it appears that it is better not to fix, but to let them to change constantly with incoming input, because usually in our brain, what do you think? Connectivity changes constantly. I think that there should be some mechanism to prevent explosions. So in this case, connectivity doesn't, yeah, it appears that it works. I can't prove this theoretically, but probably depends on the signals we have. So this is the 3D structure. This is connectivity. The proof this is initial connectivity, -1, +1. And these are matrices after training session. This is after testing sessions. You see that the variance of connectivity is quite similar. And besides, didn't explode. We put 3 restriction maximum ±100, I think, and you see, we doesn't reach the maximum. This means that connectivity width from trail to trail doesn't vary too much, but anyway, slight changes in the connectivity is observed.
You have inhibitory?
Sorry?
Do you have inhibitory process?
Yes, we have. You see the range here is blue is negative, red is positive. This here are zeros. Yes.
So I think like this you also have like the filter is also this kind.
Yes.
This is the very strong difference that your NTech also comes, right?
So you can see this is from one example, one data set, but with all data sets we have the same. So it helps. It appears that it helps. And there are some preliminary results. We have even better results now. This is a prediction of neural response decoder. We had 7 sessions for training and 2 sessions for testing. This is about satisfaction prediction, balanced accuracy, and F-score on 2 classes. And this is metrics about motor control decoder in case if we use neural response decoder to fix its response. And we see that the best results are here probably when we use both motor control and neural response decoder to predict desired movement. So this accuracy is quite good for this kind of data because it's very tricky to work with this kind of data. And with this, I will finish and give the word to Georgi to explain.